White is a bad man.
What's up, YouTube? It's your boy IJ here, back with another edition of the I'm Just Talking podcast. And today's episode, I got a line of stuff for you guys. Going to be talking about the Bills-Dolphins game, previewing that game, and making my prediction, while also debuting two new segments on here, and going through some college football news and talking about the NBA as well. But before we get started, we all know what today is, and we all know the significance of today, what happened in the United States back in 2001 on this day. So before I get started, it's only right that I give a moment of silence for all the people who tragically perished in the 9/11 attack. So real quick, just want to give a quick moment of silence and give my respect to the people that we lost on this day 23 years ago. Thank you. All right, so let's get right into it. Now, before we get started, as always, gotta give honor to God, because without him, I wouldn't be able to do this. And to kick things off, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. Now, these are two teams that came off huge victories this past weekend. The Buffalo Bills came back against the Cardinals, and the Dolphins came back against the Jaguars. So both came off of pretty good comeback victories. And this is a divisional game, so obviously they're looking to win this one as well. Both teams are jockeying to win that AFC East title comes the end of the regular season. So obviously this game is going to have huge implications for that, even though it's only in September. Games like this will matter later on in the NFL season. So looking at it from the Bills' perspective, last game Josh Allen completed 78% of his passes, threw for 232 passing yards with 2 touchdowns, while also rushing 9 times for 39 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns as well. So right now he has 4 total touchdowns, and he's been getting it done on the ground game and through the passing game. And then James Cook for the Buffalo Bills, he's had 19 carries last game with 71 rushing yards. And on the receiving side of things, now this is the group that's been, gone under reconstruction for the Buffalo Bills. They went out and drafted Keon Coleman. He had 4 receptions for 51 receiving yards. And then Shakir had 3 receptions for 42 receiving yards and 1 touchdown this past game as well. So that's from the Bills standpoint. And then for the Dolphins standpoint, last game, Tua Tagovailoa completed 62% of his passes, threw for 338 passing yards with 1 touchdown. Devon Achane didn't have the best game, rushed for 10 attempts with 24 rushing yards, but he did have a touchdown. And then running back Jeff Wilson also chipped in with 5 rushing attempts for 26 rushing yards. So that's one thing the Dolphins are going to be looking to fix in this game against the Buffalo Bills, get the running game going, but it will be kind of tough because Raheem Mostert has been listed as out for this game, and Devon Achane will be a game-time decision for tomorrow night's game. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the running back spot tomorrow night. Then receiving-wise, Tyreek Hill, he had a crazy Sunday. But he still went out there, had 7 receptions for 130 receiving yards and 1 touchdown, and Jalen Waddle chipped in with 5 receptions for 109 receiving yards as well. So looking at this game tomorrow night from the Dolphins' perspective, I'm looking at, like I said, how will the run game do with all the injuries that they have at the running back position right now. And defensively, can they get off to a better start? Because that was one thing that hurt them in that Jacksonville game, even though they were able to win on that last-second field goal. Their defense wasn't able to stop the Jaguars in the first half. Now, in the second half, they were able to get things going. They were able to get stops, and then that ultimately led to the offense getting going, and they ultimately won the game, like I said. But can the defense be able to get out to a better start? Because this isn't the same Buffalo Bills team from last year. Okay, they're without Stephon Diggs, and on the defensive side, there's without some of their key players from last year as well. So, with that being said, can the Dolphins get off to a better start? And then for the Buffalo Bills, you can ask the same question. Can they get off to a better start themselves? Because they got off to a slow start against the Arizona Cardinals. So, it's really just a matter of who can get off to a faster and better start tomorrow night. And whoever can be able to do that will ultimately win the game, in my opinion. So, if I had to make my prediction for this game tomorrow night, it's gonna be played in Miami too. So let's get that out of the way. So it's gonna be playing in beautiful Miami, Florida. But if I had to make my prediction, I'm gonna go with the Dolphins. Not just because they're playing at home, but I just think that they'll be able to, get out to a better start. And plus, I think the defense will be able to not only contain Josh Allen, but if they can pressure Josh Allen and force him to make some bad throws, then that will ultimately be the deciding factor for the game tomorrow, if you ask me. So I'm rocking with the Dolphins tomorrow. I think it'll be a pretty close game, but I do think the Miami Dolphins will be able to pull away late and get the victory on Thursday Night Football. So those are my predictions for the Thursday night game tomorrow night. Now, I want to debut a new segment on here. And the first segment that's going to be debuting on this episode is called the Stomping on Business segment. Now, we all know that people have been saying, standing on business and all that. I add a little twist to it. I'm saying stomping on business. And basically what this segment is about is I'm highlighting 3 players who basically balled out this past weekend. They chipped in, they did the best for their teams, and they just made huge contributions for their team. So, first person that I want to give a shout out to is Isaiah Likely. Now, even though the Baltimore Ravens ended up losing this game against the Kansas City Chiefs last Thursday, Isaiah Likely still went out and did his thing. He had 9 receptions for 111 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. And if you ask me, he was out there stomping on business, especially when he had that catch. I believe it was in the early fourth quarter when the Ravens were trying to get back into the game. He had that catch, and then he had that run after catch, had that nice little juke move, and he was able to score for his only touchdown. Now, I think he was stomping on business a little bit too much because, as you can see, his toe touched the out of bounds line when he caught the ball. So obviously, if he was a foot size shorter, they would have won the game. But in all seriousness, though, he went out, he did his thing, he balled out for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the next person that was stomping on business last week was Jameson Williams. Now, Jameson Williams is a guy who got drafted by the Detroit Lions. They traded up to get him as well. And after the national championship game when he was with Alabama, he got hurt in that game. So that kind of hurt his draft stock a little bit. But he still got drafted by the Lions. He missed a couple games to start the season, but he was able to come back and didn't make a lot of contributions for the team, but he did showcase his talent. And then last year, he got suspended for the first 6 games of the season. But it was a great showing for him. It was a great game to, not only regain his confidence, but to show people that he still is one of the, not I don't want to say top receivers, but he has the potential to be one of the top receivers in the NFL. He had 5 receptions for 121 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. He was a huge contributions in the Lions winning that game against the LA Rams. A game that the Lions went out and they started off early, but the Rams were able to come back and make it a close game. Then they ultimately won in overtime. So Jameson Williams, shout out to him. He also got the game ball from NBC. So shout out to him. And then the final person that I want to spotlight who was stomping on business, if you ask me, was Jordan Mason. Now, if you guys don't know who this is, this was the running back for the San Francisco 49ers. CMC, Christian McCaffrey, he was ruled out for the game, so Jordan Mason had to step in, and he stepped in tremendously. 28 carries for 147 rushing yards with 1 touchdown as well. He was the catalyst for the San Francisco 49ers winning that game against the New York Jets this past Monday night. So, obviously, shout out to him. He did his thing. He stepped up in the biggest moment, and he helped his team get the victory. So, shout out to all 3 of those guys. I was going to say Will Likely, Isaiah Likely, Jameson Williams, and Jordan Mason. Those guys were stomping on business this past weekend in the NFL. Now, the next segment that I want to debut here on today's episode is the dripping or sinking segment. Now, this segment was originally going to be where I looked at the NFL players and their fits and how they came in before the game. So, like, say, for instance, Joe Burrow, if he was dripped out before last Sunday's game against the Patriots. But I decided to take a different approach to it. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at two teams, one in the AFC and one from the NFC, and I'll look to see if they're dripping or sinking. So, for instance, let's start things off in the AFC. The first team in the AFC that I think was dripping last week was the LA Chargers. Now, this was a team that I wasn't too high on this offseason. They hired Jim Harbaugh, but I still wasn't high on them on being a pretty good team this year. But they were able to go out and beat the Raiders. That was a team that I thought was going to go in SoFi Stadium and get the victory against them. But the Chargers were able to get the victory against the Raiders. They got the running game going. J.K. Dobbins had a pretty nice game on the ground this past Sunday. So, if they can continue to keep this momentum going, if Jim Harbaugh can continue to get the best out of his players, they're going to be a team to reckon with in the coming future. So, that's a team that was dripped out, if you ask me, this past weekend in the AFC side of things. And then on the NFC side of things, I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, even though they played the Giants, I know people are going to be like, it's the Giants. But let's take into account what this team's gone through this offseason. You know, they lost one of their rookie corners. You know, he sadly passed away. Then they've dealt with a lot of injuries this offseason, including quarterback J.J. McCarthy, who was supposed to, eventually take over the starting quarterback position. And the fact they were able to do what, people expect them to do against the Giants with Sam Darnold as their quarterback, come on, man. It doesn't get any better than that. And especially from Sam Darnold's case, who was a top 10 draft pick in the 2018 draft, kind of fell to the wayside. But me personally, I think the situation that he was in with the New York Jets wasn't good for him. But after he left the Jets, he went with the Panthers for a little bit. He did pretty well with them. Then last year, he was the backup to Brock Purdy. And then this season, he ultimately got the starting gig for the Minnesota Vikings. So he has the opportunity. He's making the most of it. So he was able to have a great game against the Giants on the field where at one time he was seeing ghosts. Like, I'm not kidding. You can look it up on YouTube. But in all seriousness, though, shout out to the Minnesota Vikings. Shout out to Sam Darnold as well. And shout out to the whole team for being able to get the victory this past week. So those are the two teams that I thought were dripped out this past weekend. Now, let's look at the teams that are crying out for help. And right now they're sinking. Number one, we're going to switch things up. We're going to start in the NFC this time. In the NFC, the team that's sinking right now is the Carolina Panthers. I mean, there's nothing else I can say about this team. I mean, I can't. It was between them and the Giants, but then the Giants, I just feel bad for them. Like, I just really feel bad for them. And I wasn't going to do them like that. Because when you compare the teams, at least the Giants didn't lose the way that the Panthers did. The Panthers, oh boy. We may have to say a prayer for Bryce Young and fans of Carolina Panthers. So, yeah, they're in need of some desperate help. They're in need of some help. But I think once they get things going and get the chemistry going with Carolina, they'll be straight. And then the AFC side of things, the team that's crying out for help, right now it's the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I was conflicted between the Bengals or the Browns because the Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson, he already got another thing that he got to deal with. I thought we were done with that whole situation with him. But apparently there's another allegation against him. If you know, you know. But I'm not going to get into that today. But the Cleveland Browns, man, I don't know. They were tied with the Bengals, but the reason I'm going with the Bengals is because they had a pretty poor showing against the New England Patriots. This was a game where a lot of a lot of people expected the Cincinnati Bengals to come out and beat the New England Patriots on their home turf as well. Let's not forget, this game was played in Cincinnati, and it was just a bad showing for the Cincinnati Bengals all around, and I don't know. Then they got to play the Chiefs next week, and that's no easy task. So, yeah, man, this team, the Cincinnati Bengals, I was really disappointed in them. And I have Joe Burrow on my fantasy team too. So, ultimately, I still got the dub with my fantasy team. But it was still a bad showing for the Bengals. Now, me personally, I'm just hoping they get things situated with Jamar Chase. I hope they're able to get his contract done because, let's face it, he is one of the top receivers in the league. We all know he's capable of when he's on the field. So, Cincinnati, they're going to have to get things together because that was not a good showing for them, if you ask me. So, yeah, those were the teams that I thought were dripped out this weekend, I thought that the LA Chargers and the Minnesota Vikings were the teams that were dripped out. And the teams that are asking for help right now are the Carolina Panthers and the Cincinnati Bengals. But maybe I'm just talking. Switching gears now to not so good news coming out of the Colorado Buffaloes camp. Reading this from ESPN.com says Colorado safety Charlotte Sanders is expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks following surgery Sunday to repair a right forearm injury. Buffalo coach Deion Sanders, the father of Charlotte, and Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders confirmed the surgery and the outlook. Deion Sanders said Charlotte, who suffered the injury in the first quarter of Saturday's 28-10 loss in Nebraska, has been a fast healer from previous ailments, including the offseason knee surgery. And this is what Deion Sanders had to say about that. He said, and I quote, "I've never seen nothing like it, the healing ability." So, obviously, this sucks for Charlotte Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes. Wishing my boy a speedy recovery. You know, I ain't got beef with Colorado like that, okay? It's not that deep where, you know, I can't wish one of the Deion sons or one of the players speedy recovery from injury. So, wishing him the best, and like I said, wishing him a speedy recovery, and I know he'll be able to bounce back from that. Now I want to look at the AP polls from the past weekend in college football. No real changes except for the number 21 spot. At the number 21 spot, it is now the Iowa State Cyclones who take over that spot after being unranked. Number 22, Clemson, is now at the 22 spot after being at the number 25 spot. The Nebraska Cornhuskers, after their win against the Colorado Buffaloes, are now in the AP Top 25 at number 23. At number 24, Boston College Eagles are now at the 24th spot after previously being unranked. And then, this is a surprise. At number 25, the Northern Illinois Huskies, after their upset against Notre Dame, they are now at the number 25 spot after previously being unranked. So, shout out to Northern Illinois for being able to get into this spot and to be able to get that upset victory over Notre Dame as well. So, switching gears now to the NBA, we have some news coming out from the Denver Nuggets. This broke a couple days ago, but I had completely forgot about it. You know, with the NBA, especially during this time of year, we don't get a lot of news like this. But reading this from ESPN.com says Denver Nuggets star point guard Jamal Murray has agreed to a 4-year, $208 million maximum contract extension. His agents Jeff Schwartz and Mike George told ESPN on Saturday. The deal, which keeps Murray out of free agency next summer, ties one of the franchise cornerstones to the Nuggets for a total of 5 seasons and for $244 million. Can he break me some of that money? But now, reading down on the ESPN article, it says Murray made a remarkable comeback after missing the 2021-22 season with a torn ACL, returning to help Jokic lead the Nuggets to an NBA championship in the NBA season. It also goes on to read that Murray, one of 8 players with multiple 50-point playoff games in NBA history, is the franchise all-time leader in made three-point shots. He averaged a career high of 21 points this past season and a career high of 6.5 assists as well. So, much deserved for Jamal Murray. Like it stated, he came back from that torn ACL injury, and he was one of the vital parts for the Denver Nuggets in that championship run, and he's still been one of the vital members for that team as well. So, again, shout out to him. He definitely earned the bag, and hopefully he continues to ball out for the team as well. Now, for the final segment of today, we're going through and looking at the NBA teams before the season starts. And today's team that we're spotlighting today is the Charlotte Hornets. Now, this is a team that has been in kind of NBA purgatory in the last couple of seasons. Now, there was that one season where they made the play-in tournament, but they ultimately didn't make the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs since the 15-16 season. And, you know, looking at some of the moves that they made this offseason, they re-signed Miles Bridges, who has had a kind of tumultuous time with the Hornets, dealing with some off the court stuff. But if he can, you know, stay focused on the court stuff, he has been one of the more vital members for the Charlotte Hornets. So they re-signed him on a 3-year deal. They also re-signed Seth Curry as well. They also went out and added Taj Gibson, and they traded for Josh Green in a trade with with the Dallas Mavericks. So this is a team in the Charlotte Hornets that, on paper, they have talent on their roster. They really do. But the one person that ties everything together hasn't been able to play on the court, and that person is LaMelo Ball. So, ever since LaMelo got drafted in the NBA, In the 2020 season, his rookie year, he played a total of 51 games. We all know that was the year where, it was kind of a condensed season, because of the bubble prior, and they had that short recovery time. So we're going to throw that season now. So in the 2021-22 season, he played a total of 75 games. So an improvement. But it's been the last couple of years where he has been able to stay on the court. In the 2022 season, he only played 36 games. And then last year, he only played 22 games. So that's been one of the main problems for the Charlotte Hornets. Their main guy hasn't been able to stay on the court. And when he's on the court, LaMelo has been one of the best facilitators in the NBA. And he's not just a great facilitator. He's a great passer as well. And he can shoot the basketball. Plus, he can drive to the lane and make the tough contested layups as well. So that's really the only thing that, if you ask me, has been hindering this Charlotte Hornets team. Because when LaMelo Ball's not out there, the team isn't that good. But when he's out there, they're a pretty good team. And not only that, the connection between him and Miles Bridges has been one of the best connections in the NBA. When they were on the court together in that 21-22 season, every time it was a wide open lane for LaMelo to throw a lob to Miles Bridges, it was showtime for the Charlotte Hornets. So just that. And then plus, I saw a lot of good things from the Charlotte Hornets towards the end of the season. Now, obviously, their record wasn't the best, but once they traded for Grant Williams, I feel that was the move that kind of set the tone for them. They started winning a couple of games, a couple of meaningful games for them, and I think that they'll be able to carry that momentum going into next season. Now, will they be able to make the play-in tournament? That remains to be seen. But if you ask me, the Charlotte Hornets are one of the teams where if they're healthy and they're clicking, they can be one of the teams that surprise people in the Eastern Conference. But, hey, maybe I'm just talking at the end of the day. But that's today's episode. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and listening. And real quick, before I sign off, if you're in the Mississippi area, if you're going to be affected by Tropical Storm Francine, make sure you stay safe. Make sure you stay safe and, don't go outside if you don't have to. Don't drive if you don't have to. And just stay at home if you have to. So just stay safe. And, again, be precautious and just stay safe. But, yeah, love you guys. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and listening. And, as always, KGF, keep God first. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Peace. I'm out.